In this broadcast, we discuss the latest manipulative moves by Xi Jinping. For the third time, China has released a list of what it calls standardized names for places in Arunachal Pradesh. In the next half an hour, we bring back the real map of China, which was prepared by NewsX and shown to the world. This map is going to list out the many places which China, in fact, occupies till today through its belligerence and its unwanted force. We also discuss the hypocrisy of China in naming places around the world. First, let's have a look at the real map of China. It's right in front of your eyes. China is, of course, a huge country. On the right-hand side, if I can just zoom in, this is the actual China that existed earlier on for decades and centuries now. On the left, if we pan, we have the Chinese-occupied Tibet, a land they have occupied through illegal and evil means. Below that is the Chinese-occupied Yunnan, which was also occupied by China through force and aggression. On the right-hand side, if you pull along, the Chinese-occupied South Mongolia, a part of Mongolia, which definitely does not belong to China. Further to the northwest is the Chinese-occupied Manchuria, which has been occupied by China per force. And if you go a little towards the ocean, the East China Sea and Taiwan, we get to see that Hong Kong, of course, is reeling under the illegal occupation of China. Macau, a very popular tourist destination, is also under the illegal occupation of China. And there are a number of places in and around. Some of them already are part of the South China and the East China and the Yellow Sea. Some of them have come up as a result of China creating artificial islands. Well, China has occupied so much territory, it is still going in for occupation and in fact trying to rename places in Arunachal Pradesh. What is going on over here? We are going to discuss this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat, Major General Dr. G.G. Dwivedi, Global and Strategic Affairs and Defense expert, also joins us on the program. General A.K. Sivach, former Head of Territorial Army, Geostrategic and Defense expert, also with us on the program. Ambassador Vora, I'll begin with you, sir. So China naming or renaming certain places in Arunachal Pradesh is analogous to, you and I renaming the sun or the moon. It's not going to change the fact that it's going to continue to rise and continue to shine. It's not going to change the fact that it is what it is. China is becoming desperate for occupation. It's becoming desperate to usurp territory which legally it is not ready to in fact give up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malhotra. Always a pleasure to be with you on NewsX. I enjoyed very much 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I learned so much from you and from the two generals, General Sivach and Major General Professor G.G. Dwivedi. Now, I've got a severe throat infection, so if I lapse into a paroxysm of coughing, please excuse me. You've talked about what the Chinese are up to. They tried cartographic aggression against India in the 1950s, military aggression in 1962-2020, economic pressure since the new millennium, psychological force, all this. Nothing has worked, so it now seeks to assert its claims through nomenclature. China's problem is the leaders' hubris and paranoia. Unable to take on India militarily or politically, thanks to outstanding sons of India like the two generals, Pingling tries cartographic expression by publishing maps with Chinese names in Arunachal Pradesh. By the way, one ancient biblical name for China in Isaiah 49:12 in the Bible was Sin, S-I-N. Its people were Sinim, inhabitants of the land of Sin. I think in our maps we should stop calling it China and name it Sim. That would be a double whammy for these characters. Now, a decade ago, China added a map to its passports. It's very interesting, showing all territory that it claimed from others as Chinese land. It was an obscene joke. Using your preferred names for areas that you covered is a tactic as old as international relations. China refuses to demonstrate its preparedness to pay fares. Sir, Ping Pong cannot modify his hardline approach, both at home and abroad, so a soft landing for China is not possible. On the one hand, if a regime doesn't reform and doubles down on oppression, it becomes sclerotic, the pressures intensify, and at some point, the gaskets blow. To survive, He needs to destroy any idea of reform. This is what we are seeing today in China. So they fabricate evidence to claim the areas as their own, etc., etc. Now, when on their maps they started embossing a map of China showing a lot of territory that they claimed as theirs, we responded by stamping on it for Chinese seeking our visas, a correct map of India. The Chinese backed off very, very quickly. Then they started doing this nonsense about stapled visas for our military officers posted in Jammu and Kashmir, I think, and in Arunachal Pradesh. And then we responded likewise saying, well, anybody who belongs to the Chinese military, will give him a special kind of visa, which will be a special document, etc., etc. Now, when you call out a bully, sir, let me just tell it to you very bluntly. He blinks first. My favorite scene in the movie Patton is when General Patton is destroying Rommel's panzers, the German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, in the Battle of Tunis. And he's got his tanks positioned, has Patton in the right place, absolutely thrashing the Germans. And of course, Rommel was the guy who would publish everything and write about his exploit. And then Rommel says a line that has always stayed with me. Forgive the language, I'm quoting in original. Rommel, you magnificent bastard, I have read your book. The world has read and understood China's book. India read and understood it a long time ago.
Well said, sir. Well said. Appreciate that feedback. Jal Dwivedi, what do you make of this new stunt being pulled off by China? It's happened in the past as well. But you know, China has been desperate. China has been relegated. China has been basically hard on its own heels because of the progress that India has made. It is basically also vying for India's attention and, you know, stir up some sort of a conflict, because otherwise China will lose its relevance at home and abroad.
Well, Vineet, those of us who follow China very closely, such actions do not come as surprise. Well, if you go historically, Chinese have been an expansionist power, and their emperors have been seeking tribute. And Chinese communist leadership, they have penchant for history. You know, after 1949, you rightly pointed out that China was exactly what the core is, that is the inner China, half of it what it is today. So first thing Mao did was to put a flag in Tibet, then reintegrate Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, and I was in China towards the end of last millennium. And they reintegrated 1997 Hong Kong, 1st July, and then Macau. The point I'm trying to make is that Chinese are expansionists and they'll continue to do it. So therefore, it should not come as a surprise. But we need to take countermeasures. Couple of things happened during the the Chinese aggression in Ladakh. Couple of things happened. One was Chinese made a border law on 1st January 22, and that said that we will demarcate the border, we will rename the places, and that is what they are doing. This is the third time they are doing it. The issue is Chinese have a strategy of gray zone warfare, and that has three important components. First is to claim a place legally. Like say Chinese have not recognized McMahon line, they have drawn their own line in 1959, and that line keeps actually moving westward, and they keep encroaching on the McMahon line. And that's what they did in 9-dash line in the South China Sea. Second point is that they keep nibbling and establishing their hold. And now they are on to making the border villages, 620 of them. So a couple of them have come up in Longju, especially I have written about it, and others are coming up. Therefore, what should India do? That's more important what Chinese are doing. First and foremost, I think we need to have a very integrated approach, our border management. We need to actually start encroaching on the other side, because responding to Chinese is not the way. Secondly, our diplomacy has to be more proactive. You see, every third day, the Chinese ambassador, now the charge d'affaires, they are coming with statements, they're getting good space in Indian media. I think we need to respond diplomatically. And third very important point is we need to give a very strong military response, because anywhere there's encroachment, we got to do counter encroachment, we got to be more proactive. My last point is that Chinese will continue to do this. This is part of the strategy. They are not going to change. And last in 22, Xi Jinping was in Tibet, And he said he want to make Tibet as a iron shield. And now after a third term, he is making PLA as iron shield. So therefore, we need to be well prepared, be more proactive, and reply Chinese in their own language, what they understand, and that is the language of strength and language of power. Vineet.
Absolutely. General Sivaj, what should be the befitting response over here? Should India also go ahead and rename certain Chinese territories?
I suppose we need tit for tat. Chinese only understand that language. If you pay back them in the same coin, then they are very defensive. For example, that the salami slicing is a part and parcel of their strategy, and they have been doing not only in India but in other countries also. But we paid back them by occupying Class Range on August 29 September on 2020. That is the time when we occupied Class Range, and the Chinese never came to know. We occupied Richingla, Spangkur Gap, and complete Shashul Moldo Bowl was with us. We could dominate the Spangkur Gap from where the Chinese came in 1962. That point of time we could go in China, but Chinese couldn't come. That's a different story, that we gave back Class Range with the aim to buy peace and try to negotiate on north and south of Pangangso. To me, I suppose that was a tactical mistake India has committed. We should have not given them the Class Range unless Dapsang issue is resolved. Nonetheless, my only contention is, as far as Chinese is concerned, there is a long-term strategy. You must understand, why are they now doing it? They have done 3 times change of names in 2017, 2021, 2023. Now, Jigme Wangchu, King of Bhutan, is here, and they are trying to resolve their border dispute with Bhutan. They have already in 2021 3-step roadmap. That is the time when they are trying to convey the Doklam issue. Basically, when India has gone in 2017 and we look into the eyes of China for 73 days and push them back, thereafter they have again tried to take this Doklam. They are putting tremendous pressure on Bhutan. They are saying that Doklam must be given to them, and they will give Bhutan some concession in the central and the northern sector, whether it is Jakharlung or Panamlung, or they will also not name Sakatang Wildlife Sanctuary, which is next to Taiwan, as their own. Why do they need Doklam? Is that in case they come to Jampri Ridge, they can dominate the Siliguri corridor and Chumbi Valley, and they can cut off the rest of India from northeast. So that is the strategy. Now they are trying to indirectly put pressure on India by changing these names of Arunachal Pradesh, which as the whole world knows, Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India, but they are trying to send a message not only to India but also to Bhutan. And that is what we must know it. As far as China is concerned, we have a zero trust with Chinese, because Chinese only understand a language which is befitting to them. Remember that it took us 50 years to start developing our infrastructure, but we are fast catching them. And today from Arunachal to Ladakh, the type of roads, bridges, tunnels which we are making it, and we are looking into the Chinese eyes. Remember, after 62, we pay back them in 1967 and Nathula, that we lost 40 soldiers, but we almost killed more than 400 soldiers of the Chinese. And what happened in Galwan, that we 20 brave hearts sacrificed their life, but 100 Chinese soldiers were killed. So as on today, we know how to handle Chinese, and the way of handling China is become economically strong, which we are now trying to become. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. We will soon become the 3rd largest, and become militarily strong. Modernize your military and improve your infrastructure. Look into the Chinese eyes. Don't believe what they say. What they say, what they do are 2 different things. This has been shown to us time and again. So I will say, Vineet, do not believe on China. Try to look into their eyes, become militarily and economically strong, and also exploit the weaknesses of China. As on today, China is weakest. It is isolated in world. The supply chains are moving out of China. They are now very keen that they must come into the picture. They want to take the message across the world that they are still there. But I suppose the Chinese have lost the battle, and we should be very, very clear Do not believe the Chinese what they are saying and what they are doing. Modernize yourself and
Absolutely,
be prepared
sir.
for the worst case scenario. We need.
China has lost the battle and India is going to win the war. Ambassador Vora, there's another concern that has been expressed in the past and currently so as well. NATO is expanding. The eyes of the world are going to be towards, the conflict in Europe taking another shape. Do you think that China perhaps could take advantage of this distraction?
To do what?
To basically target India in some way.
Mr. Malhotra, you're a foreign service kid. It's not a zero-sum game. If they think that America and the others are going to be distracted with Russia, well, they have been for a long time. So Finland getting in or Sweden possibly getting in is not going to make any substantial difference. All these European jokers have been trying to weaken Putin. And so Putin tells the Chinese fellow that, sweetheart, I love you, come, let's get into bed together, we'll help each other. No, that's not going to work. The Russians also don't trust the Chinese. Chanakya had said, sir, you might recall 2004 years ago, that your neighbor is your natural enemy. The Chinese are not smart, as the general just said. Their pursuit of their national interests through aggressive diplomacy and the use of threat of use of force has compelled many countries to look for different ways to respond. So India and many other countries are trying to seek a power-centric and pragmatic approach to molding the regional order. Countries like New Zealand and South Korea, they were a little reticent because they said we don't want to stand against China owing to economic compulsion. But now they are saying, look, we want to be in Quad Plus. China is isolated and alone. I'll tell you the problem. Its diplomats try to be warriors and its military pretends to be diplomatic. The result, both fail miserably. When India's response is firm and fierce, China scampers away whimpering. But if China does decide to do anything while the West is distracted with Russia, its top priority is Taiwan at this point of time. Actually, its topmost priority is the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. But if they try to mess around with Taiwan, I think that will be the end of Dingling and his regime, because it's not going to be. Taiwan in 2023 is not the Tibet of 1949 and 1957.
Absolutely, sir. General Dwivedi, if China can take advantage of these world events, India too can take advantage of some of the, things that are going around the world and are not benefiting China in much way. And of course, to top that list is Taiwan.
Absolutely, Vinit. I think when we deal with Chinese, we need to have a bifocal strategy. One is how we deal with China one-to-one, and then how do we deal with China in the larger global context. After all, we are no more a regional power. We have a global, vision, and we have a capacity to be a global player. That's what we are trying to do. So therefore, when we look at China, we need to look at from the two perspectives. And secondly, we also have to have a very close eye as to what exactly is happening inside China. You see, today, what is Xi Jinping's first priority is to project himself as a global leader, as the most powerful leader. And that's why he is trying to be a peacemaker. He did make some kind of peace in Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now today he is trying to get the Ukraine and the Russians together. So his first priority is to project himself as the most powerful leader among the Chinese people. Secondly, of course, he has a China dream. That is, China should be a great power by 2050, and that's what his pursuit is. Along with that, how do he integrates Taiwan, India, because India is the natural competitor. They are the natural adversary, and that's exactly we should treat Chinese. The Chinese are the natural adversary. We can never be friends with Chinese because our interests are so divergent, and China sees us as not only potential, but today it sees us as a competitor, a roadblock in its ambition to be a global player. So therefore, I think we need to have a very clear-cut China policy. We need to play the game more proactively. As I said, in regional terms, we need to build capacity because nations are measured by comprehensive national power. And that means your total power. And secondly, nations are seeing who are your friends, who are your allies. So therefore, I think we need to play more proactive role in Quad Plus, in Indo-Pacific, in Asia-Pacific, and especially in our neighborhood. I think we should have a absolutely very clear-cut policy. At the end, I would say the Chinese treat us not only adversary, possibly as enemies, and we need to have a same approach And Chinese can be taken on only one way. There's the word Li in Chinese, strength. Strength can actually give the clear message to the Chinese. Vineet.
Right, absolutely. General Sivaj, almost out of time. Your thoughts on how this conundrum that we find ourselves in at the behest of China should be resolved and sorted once and for all, or can't it be?
See, the point is, Vineet, India always wanted to resolve this border dispute from day one. But it is China which is not. Remember that it has long border with 14 countries. It has resolved border dispute by and large with 12 countries. But it has not done deliberately with India and Bhutan. It is now putting tremendous pressure on Bhutan to negotiate to its own terms and try to come in Doklam. At the same time, it is not ready to resolve an issue with us. We have brought a new chapter by calling Arunachal Pradesh is southern Tibet. Now, if Arunachal is a southern Tibet, in 1962, they came up to the plains of Assam. Why did they go back? So this is an afterthought. So Arunachal Pradesh has been never even part of Tibet. So the point is, today they are indirectly trying to put pressure on India, and we cannot depend and believe what China is saying and what doing. You can't say that, okay, we are now start having the best of the relationship with China, things will improve. Or we have a trade of more than $125 billion, and hence they see India is a big, large market, and therefore the relation will improve. It doesn't happen. It happened, see, Doklam in 2017, in 2020, Galwan took place. So as far as India is concerned, we have to be very well prepared as far as China is. And the way to improve and the way to get prepared is improve your infrastructure. Come at par with China, especially in Arunachal Pradesh. The psyche was very different 20 years back. We never developed Arunachal Pradesh thinking that the Chinese will come. They will make use of those roads. But now it's a different government. It's a different prime minister. We mean business. Remember, road, bridges, tunnel, they are now coming at a very fast pace. So my, take is, the key word is improve your infrastructure. Become military as strong as the Chinese. Modernize your defense forces. Not only Indian Army, but especially Air Force and Navy. Because the soft belly of China is the Indian Ocean, where they are still weak. They are fast catching up. They are increasing their submarine. They are making more aircraft carrier, but they are still vulnerable in Indian Ocean. They know that India has capability and capacity to choke Malacca state, from where the 60 to 70% of the trade of China goes. And they don't have oil more than 40 days. So the question today is that if we have to face China, take the Chinese on the face on and take it that you are well prepared. And that is the only way we should go as far as China is concerned. Don't believe what they say. Be prepared. And if you have to fight a war, it is you who has to fight war. No one is going to come to us directly. It may be indirectly help like USA and all, give you real-time information. Therefore, the key word is remain well prepared, look into Chinese eyes.
Absolutely, sir. Great points that we have received, and this is something which I'm sure China is going to take note of as well, because it's not the same India that they fought way back in the 60s. We take a short break on this particular note. News and updates will continue on the other side.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.